what's up, guys? Hey, you made it another week, people. You got to Sunday, and you got here. You look good today. That's half the battle, isn't it? Just looking good, getting to church. So high five somebody and tell them you made it to church. You're glad they're here. High five some people. Okay, about a 1/10 participation. I see what I'm working with today. It's okay. Hey, if you are brand new, I am so thankful that you are here in the room. And maybe you're here because you're like, I always wanted to go to a church in a basement. I got great news for you. You have done it. You have arrived. We are in a basement. And I'm glad that you're here. My name is Joel. I'm just one of the people on our team here. And so afterwards, I would love to meet you. And so I'll be out in the lobby just chatting. And so please stop by and say hi. I got some gifts for you. And that's just our way of saying thanks for being here. And if you're not here, that means you are joining us online. So can we make some noise for our online family right now? Thank you guys for tuning in. It's funny, in our last service, I gave a shout out to our online family to John and Kim, all right, down in Florida. I didn't realize that John and Kim are right here in the second row right now. So we were shouting you all out down in Florida. And just real quick, John had some stuff go down in Florida, and we almost lost John. But John is alive and well, sitting in the second row right now. So we're going to call you Lazarus, man, okay? So that's so good to see you, man. I'm so glad you're here. And we've been in this series called Rom-Com. And if you're new with us today, we named this series this because we've been talking about how to put the fun, the com, in the rom, in our relationships. And we're actually kind of sort of supposed to end this series last weekend when I talked about how to fight right, you know. But there's a topic that I have never talked about up here, and I've always wanted to, and I just really didn't know when to do it or how to do it, but today is the day. And so you guys got one more in you for rom-com before we roll the credits. Will you row into uncharted territory with me this morning? Good, because I don't have a backup plan, okay? And my brother's here, but I'm pretty sure he don't want to preach, okay? So anyway, here's my opening question for you today. Does anybody have somebody in your family that's like iconic? Now, before you answer that question, I don't mean like the rich and famous. I'm not talking like you got Taylor Swift or Tom Brady in your family. Okay, no. I mean, do you have an iconic person in your family? Like there's never an empty seat next to them at Thanksgiving dinner. So raise your hand if you got this kind of person in your family, an iconic person like that in your family. Okay, lots of you. Some of you are like, yeah, it's me. I'm the icon, which is why today's message is on humility. And so, no, in my family growing up, when I was a kid, Granny Jones was the icon. And I think we have a picture of Granny Jones this is Granny Jones in the 70s. Now, in the 90s, Granny Jones was still rocking a 1960s baby blue Chevy Bel Air. Come on now, she'd be rocking up to the Rite Aid. Getting 3 miles to the gallon and getting her prescriptions. That's an icon right there. And in the 90s, Granny Jones still had an outhouse in her yard. In her yard. Listen, if you're a kid, you're like, what's an outhouse? It's your own personal porta potty. And at Thanksgiving dinner, if Granny Jones was hosting it, you better bring your flashlight and your jacket because the toilet was out by the sycamore tree, all right? And Granny Jones had this crazy, demonic, possessed rooster that would just chase me when I would go, outside. Like I almost died 7 times trying to get the latch open into the porta potty because it was the rooster. I could talk all day long about Granny Jones. But when I was growing up, there was one thing that my parents were like, no, you don't talk about this around Granny Jones. Like it's just off limits, okay? And it's good that they brought that up because I definitely would have said something because, and I don't know how to say this, but Granny Jones has been gone for a while, so I feel like you can't talk about it. Embargo has been lifted, But Granny Jones had a deadly mustache. Now, no disrespect, I loved Granny Jones, but what she had in common with Tom Selleck was a very full mustache. And if she kissed you at the end of the gathering, you needed a first aid kit. It was like a cactus and a porcupine coming at you, man. And speaking of rom-com, Pop-Up Jones used to shave Granny Jones's upper lip with a straight-edge razor. That is love, people. Some are like, I shaved my wife's mustache this morning. Listen, I'm not judging. I'm laughing, but I'm not judging. But in my house growing up, my parents were like, we just don't talk about that. That's off limits. And they were smart to get ahead of that, and smarter than Stacy and I are, okay? Because I remember last Christmas we went to our family gathering. And I don't know how to say this, so I'm going to just say it. We have this person in our family who has iconic eyebrows. Okay, and I'm not judging. Okay, listen, I've had to take the weed eater to my eyebrows a few times because my wife is very subtle. She'll look at me and be like, what are you growing up there? What is that, a hedgerow? Take care of it. So I'm not eyebrow shaming anybody. But this lady, she puts the ow in eyebrow, okay? And so my boy Nixon walks in, and listen, never one time in Nixon's life he's ever thought, maybe I shouldn't say exactly what I'm thinking. No filter, okay? So he walks in, and he hasn't seen this person in our family for a long time, and he's like, Daddy, you see this? Lady, are those real? Did you draw them with a Sharpie? Because I can't use a Sharpie. I'm like, no, Nixon. Needless to say, we have not been invited back to family Christmas ever since. And some of my family was in the last service, and they were like, is it you? Is it me? Like, who has? I'm like, other side of the family. The other side. But anyway, I was like, afterwards, I said, Nixon, there's just some things that are off limits. We just don't talk about it. He's like, okay, I won't talk to her about it, but can I talk to you about it? Because I have lots of questions. Everybody say off limits. And here's why I told you that story, because I think sometimes the church can have some things that are off limits, like some things that you're just not supposed to talk about. But if you've been around here for a while, Nixon didn't get no filter, no way, okay? He got it from his Faja, okay? And so everything is on the table around here, which is why today, and I just want to tell you this very gently, I want to talk about, and we'll put this on the screen, I want to talk about divorce. And here's why I don't think we should take this off the table in the church. Because if 25% of all U.S. adults have been through a divorce, and 100% of us have been impacted in one way or another by a divorce, then I think we should talk about it, don't you? Yeah. And so we're just going to talk about it. Now, if you've gone through a divorce, do not be nervous. I am not coming after you. In fact, everybody just breathe right now. Now, do you know why divorced people can feel nervous in a church? Because they've been to one before. Right? Or they met that Christian who put a scarlet letter on them and made them feel like a second-class citizen. Or they walk into the church and the church was like, oh, you did that? Well, here's all the things you can't do here. And just so we're clear, that is not this church. That will never be this church. And I will die on that hill for this church. So I'm just saying, all right, the longer you've been a Christian, the more I may offend you today. Which is probably why it's a good time to bring up my personal email address. If you have any problems with today's message, you can email me anything you want. I would actually love to hear from you right here at nate@bayshore.com. No, here's the deal. We're going to use that later too. You're going to need his email address a lot today. But I found out that Christians could be super judgy when it came to this topic when I was a little kid. I'm a preacher's kid. I'm a PK. And so that means when I was growing up in the car, we didn't listen to Tina Turner and Guns N' Roses, all right? We were in our preacher 1980s station wagon Oldsmobile. We were listening to Carmen and Petra and Newsboys and Stephen Curtis Chapman and Amy Grant, and who just had a 1989 Christian music flashback, that just happened. And Amy Grant, Amy Grant was like the Taylor Swift to Christians back in the day. Everybody loved Amy Grant until Amy Grant got a divorce. And every Christian lost their ever-loving mind. I think the church down the road had an Amy Grant tape cassette burn party, y'all. And I think Christians started cancel culture right then. It was Amy Grant and her divorce that got it started because everybody went from loving her to judging her. And it made me think of this quote that has always bothered me because it's true. The only army that shoots its wounded is the Christian army. Now, call me crazy, but I don't think this is what Jesus had in mind when he said this in John 13:35, when he said, your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. Now, speaking of love, if you've been through a divorce in a lot of churches, you don't get shown love. You don't get a shoulder to cry on. You don't get to volunteer, and don't you even think about becoming a member at that church. But you know what you can do? You can write a tithe check. And will they cash that tithe check? Oh yeah. Right now, I know some of you are like, are you okay, Joel? Did you drink a lot of Mountain Dew this morning? No, this is water and almonds right here. All right, I am Mountain Dew sober right now. But today's message is for you if you've gone through a divorce, or if you're in the middle of one right now, or if your marriage is hanging on by a thread. All right, and by the way, if you're looking for an excuse to get divorced today, I am not going to give you that in today's message. Just an FYI. But I think we should start where most holy hanks like to start when it comes to this topic. Because I know somebody's thinking, well, Pastor Joel, the Bible says that God hates divorce. Well, that's true, holy hank. We're glad you're here. And it does say that, and God does, and all that. But what's funny about that half a verse to me is that whenever anybody quotes that, they don't really know where that even is in the Bible. And number two, they think, well, it's an open and shut case, right? But, everybody say but. Let's put this on the screen. But the Bible is not made up of just half a verse. The Bible is made up of 66 books and 1,189 chapters and 31,102 verses. And yes, half a verse says that God hates divorce. But this is so important. Let's put that next slide up. In 31,102 verses, nowhere in the Bible does it say God hates divorced people. Nowhere in the Bible does it say God hates divorced people. Now let's talk about the Bible. One day in the book of Matthew, Jesus runs into these holy hank religious people. Everybody say religious people. Now you might be like, well, that's good, right? You a religious person? No. In the Bible, the religious people are the ones who killed Jesus. Not good. Okay, in fact, every time you're reading the Bible and you see the word Pharisee, you should just hear this song in your head. All right, in your personal Bible reading time, you need to be hearing some Jaws music. So, for the next few times, when I say the word Pharisee, I need you all to go, murmur. All right, are you in? I'm going to test you right now. Matthew chapter 19, starting in verse 3. Some Pharisees. Thank you. Got one of the second lines. We'll just go with one, but I like the overachiever in you. Some Pharisees came and tried to, what did they do? Trap Jesus with this question. They tried. Should a man be allowed to divorce his wife for just, any reason? Now, just time out. The Pharisees, way better than the last service. All right, I like it. Don't tell them I said that. But they didn't really want to know the answer to this question, the Pharisees. All they wanted to do was what? Why? Because religious people are always looking to argue and divide instead of love and unify. I'm going to say that again. Religious people are always looking to argue and divide instead of love and unify. Now, there's a big backstory going on with this verse. In Jesus' day, there was these two teachers. There was, we'll put their names on the screen. There was Shemaiah and Hillel. Now, if you're going to have twins and you're looking for baby names, and you want them to never be able to pronounce their name, okay? Shemaiah and Hillel. But these guys were super famous teachers in Jesus' day that taught two totally opposite things. Okay, Shemaiah taught that, hey, you can maybe only possibly maybe consider divorce if there's like serial cheating going on, but even then it's like, I don't really know. And Hillel was like, the heck with that. You can get divorced for any reason. Let's just say your wife drives a minivan like she stole it. I'm not going to point out my wife and how she drives her minivan, okay? I'm not. I did that in the last service because she wasn't there. She's in the service. Anyway. But the Pharisees thought, okay, good. The Pharisees, they don't care about divorce. They just care about turning people against Jesus. So they thought if Jesus sides with Shemaiah, then all of Hillel's followers will get ticked at Jesus, and that's a win. And if Jesus sides with Hillel, then all Shemaiah's followers will get mad at Jesus, and that's a win. And so they thought no matter what Jesus says, people are getting mad at him. It's kind of like if I were to ask you guys, like, what do you think is better, Grotto's or Nicola's? Listen, however I answer that question, somebody's going to get mad at me. All right, somebody's going to want to, like Will Smith, church slap me in the church foyer. Which is why I thought I should take this moment to answer the question. And listen, I've already ticked off a lot of people with today's message, but this is going to be the thing that's going to push somebody over the edge. It's the Grotto's, Nicola's debate. But if I had to pick between Grotto's and Nicola's, I'm choosing Grotto's. I'd like to remind you that my email address is Nate@Bay Shore. Yes, here it is. Send it all there. No, how many of you would like to change my mind on this? You would like me to be, to say Nicola's. Anybody would like to change my mind on this? Okay, some people. Well, I have a few ideas. You could buy me a bunch of Nicoboli cases. Nicola's gift cards, maybe. You could take me and my family out to Nicola's and pay for it. Because I stinking love Nicola's. It lost by just a hair, but I can be bought, people. I can. And you can help with that, okay? But in the same way, the religious people, they don't care about divorce. They're trying to divide Jesus' followers. And so Jesus says this. He says to the religious people, he says, haven't you read the scriptures? Which, make no mistake about it, this is a burn. Jesus was like, hey, you good people, you religious people, haven't you read the good book? Like, he's just like a Jesus burn. Anyway, I like those. Some of you get like that too. You're like, get him, Jesus, get him. He says they record that from the beginning, God made them male and female. And he said, this explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. Since they are no longer two but one, Jesus says, let no one split apart what God has joined together. In other words, Jesus is like, you all just want to talk about how devastating divorce is, which it is. But it's like, I want to talk about how amazing marriage can be first. And so, do you know what makes a good marriage? You know what makes a good marriage? When this person makes this person better, and when this person makes this person better, that makes an amazing marriage. And if you are a married man and you are successful, do you know why that is? It's because you have an amazing woman by your side. And if you are a married woman and you are successful, do you know why that is? It's because you're just successful. That's why. I'm kidding. Kinda. A little bit. Some of you will get that later. My wife has made my life so much better. But before Stacy, I ate two things. I ate cheeseburgers and cheesesteaks. Okay, I'm sorry, cheeseburgers and cheese pizza. That's it. Before Stacy, I never had sushi. I never ate poke. I didn't know what an avocado was, okay? But I am a changed man. The other day, Stacy ordered a fig and gorgonzola pizza with balsamic and arugula on it. Listen, I don't know what 100% of those ingredients are. I thought arugula was an island down in the Caribbean. I'm like, how are you going to put a Caribbean island on my pizza? Like, I didn't understand how that worked. And before Stacy, listen, I would rather get stabbed in the eyes by Granny Jones's whiskers than to eat a fig and gorgonzola pizza. But I took a bite, and it was amazing. And it should be, because it costs $973. Before Stacy, I never had sushi. And then one day, when we were dating, she's like, I'm making you and my dad eat sushi for the first time. So we went to this restaurant, and Stacy's brother, RJ, was there. He ordered, the first thing that he ordered was a quail egg. I never heard of this either, okay? And they brought it. I think it was in the nest, okay, still. I didn't know what to order. Stacy ordered our food, and it came, and I didn't know what anything was on my plate. And Stacy's dad was like, hey, Stace, what's this green stuff? And she's like, that's wasabi, Dad. It's super spicy. And he's like, oh, I love spicy stuff. And before she could stop him, he's like, Harp. And then he's sitting there like, and, you know, RJ's over there crunching on a baby bird egg. I'm like, I don't know if I should really marry into this family. I'm not sure this is normal at all, you know. But I ate sushi. And sushi is so good, I would do bad things for a spicy tuna roll right now. Like, so good. I remember on our 5-year anniversary, Stacy ordered us escargot. Now, I'm from Gumboro. I never heard of escargot in my life. And it's our wedding anniversary. And so I'm just trying to be agreeable. And she's a smoke show, so I'm just trying to like make everything go right, you know? So I was like, I'll eat escargot. I ate escargot. And it was amazing. And I'm like, what is this escargot? And she's like, you just ate a snail. I just fed you snails. I'm like, you are a dirty woman. But Stacy has made my life so much better. And not just food, okay? But we've gone places. We have 2 amazing kids, one who's sitting right next to her, right there. And like, Stacy has made my life better. And isn't it true, if you're married, that your spouse makes your life better? Isn't that true? I gave you all just an opportunity to get brownie points right then, and some of you missed it, so we're about second chances around here. So isn't it true that your spouse makes your life better? Amen. All right. Just lie, even if it's not true, you know? So, back to the story. Jesus is like, before we talk about divorce, let's talk about how amazing marriage can be. But the Pharisees, they don't want to hear about that. There it is. Thank you. The Pharisees, they are in attack mode. And so, they just say in verse 7, then Jesus, why did Moses bring up Moses, say in the law that a man could give his wife a written notice of divorce and send her away? Why did Moses say that? They asked. Now, Moses did say that in Deuteronomy chapter 24. And I don't have time to totally unpack this, but when Moses said that, he basically primarily was trying to protect women. And here's why. Before Moses said that, a guy could divorce his wife for any reason at all. You know, like driving the minivan crazy. All right, we're out. You know, I'm out of here, okay? And back in Moses' day, if you threw a woman out on the street and she was divorced, she had no resources, she had no way to provide for herself, and it could literally mean her death sentence. And so Moses actually put steps in place to make it harder to get a divorce, primarily to protect women. And the Pharisees, they don't bring that up, right? Because they're just trying to fight. Yeah, Jaws people. And so, watch this. In verse 8, Jesus replied, Moses permitted divorce. That's true. But only as a concession to your what? Hard hearts. Now, quick question. Is anybody stubborn in the room? Any stubborn people in the room? Come on. Okay. Some of you are like, I'm not sure if I am, but I ain't raising my hand. You are. Okay. Follow-up question, totally different. Is anybody in the room or anybody watching online really like addicted to chewing on ice? And anybody like love to chew on ice? Okay, you are my people. I am addicted to chewing on ice. And it's not my fault. Like most things we're addicted to, it's not my fault. It's because like my dad growing up, he chewed on ice, and we had a Rottweiler named Teddy that we found out chewed on ice. Don't ask how we found that out, but we found out. And so I'm like, my dog chews on ice, my dad chews on ice. I'm just an ice chewer. That's just who I am, you know. The problem is I've started to chip my teeth because I chew on ice so much. Like right now I have 2 places in my mouth I can feel. It's like sharp, you know, I can feel it with my tongue. And so I remember a couple months ago, I was at my dentist over here in Lewis, Dr. Laban. I love Dr. Laban, greatest dentist in the world. And he's, you know, I'm laid out on the table and he's got his welding mask on and, you know, he's got the tannin bed light just shooting in my face. I got 8 Craftsman drills in my mouth, and he's trying to talk to me, okay, which is dentist. That's weird, you know? And he's like, huh, Joe, you got some chipped teeth here. Did you know that? And I'm like, he's like, what? I'm like, He's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but he's like, do you chew on ice? And I was like, and he's like, well, would you be willing to stop chewing on ice for the sake of your teeth? And I looked right at him, at his welding mask, and I was like, Now, I am really glad he had no understanding of what I was saying, because am I going to quit chewing on ice? No. I will root for the Pittsburgh Steelers first. And that is saying something. I am stubborn. Ask my wife. And stubbornness and hard hearts are kissing cousins. And a hard heart was when you're like, well, I'm not going to change. This is just who I am, okay? You just take me or leave me, buddy. And divorce happens when one or both people have hard hearts. Look, I'm just going to be honest. I don't know of one single divorce where both people were like, I'm willing to change, and both people were like, I'm willing to put your needs above my own, and got divorced still. I don't know one case like that. And if you're here and your marriage is hanging on by a thread, here's what I 100% believe. When two people, everybody say two, not one. Thank you. Two people. When two people are completely committed and open to changing and serving the other person, and completely open and committed to Jesus, you can make it through anything. Anything. But we're stubborn. We have hard hearts. So that's what Jesus calls it, a hard heart. And so maybe you've gotten divorced and you're like, that was me. I was the one with a hard heart. And I feel so much shame right now. And I just want to tell you this. Listen, your marriage may have ended, but Jesus' love for you never ended. And forgiveness is as real as me standing on this stage right now. And if Jesus isn't thinking about your past, maybe you should stop thinking about your past. Aren't you thankful that we don't have to think about our past because of Jesus? And so, back to the story. Jesus replied in verses 8 and 9, Moses did permit divorce only as a concession to your hard hearts. But it was not what God had originally intended. And I tell you this, whoever divorces his wife and marries someone else commits adultery, unless his wife has been unfaithful. In other words, Jesus says, if you have gone through a divorce, that just wasn't God's dream for your life. Now, if you've gone through a divorce, you're like, yeah, me neither. And so he's just saying that wasn't what was originally dreamed up for your life. Now, Jesus brought up cheating, and so I just think I should say this. If your marriage ended because of cheating, or maybe it didn't end, but there was cheating in the marriage, I just want to say to you, if you got cheated on, I am so sorry. That should have never, ever happened to you. Period. End of story. And so you're not going to get judgment around here. You're going to get sympathy and compassion. But maybe you're here and you're like, but I was the one who cheated. Here's the thing. You never get here what you think you're going to get. I'm not going to beat you up, because you've probably done a good job of that yourself already, haven't you? And so all I want to say is your past does not have to define who you are in the future and what you do in the future. And so we are going to root you on the new you as you walk in forgiveness and change. So maybe you're like, well, Pastor Joel, what about that verse? God hates divorce. Well, can we take a look? Okay, Malachi 2:16. For I hate divorce, says the Lord, the God of Israel. To divorce your wife is to overwhelm her with cruelty, says the Lord of heaven's armies, because just like I said, back in the day when you divorced a woman, it was cruel to her. And so God's like, I just don't want that to happen. And so he says, on 3, let's read this together. 1, 2, 3. So guard your heart. Jesus talked about hard hearts. God says, guard your hearts. Do not be unfaithful to your wife. Now, let's leave this verse up here for a while. This verse has been used by religious people forever to just crush divorced people. This is the verse that religious people have used to make divorced people think, well, God hates divorce, and I got divorced, so God must hate me. And I extended this series so I could look at you all in the eye and tell you that is a lie from the devil himself. Full stop, end of story. I'll illustrate it this way. Years ago, my niece Willow, she was out of yard playing, and she's around 10 years old at the time, and the neighbors had a dog. Now, you all remember that movie Cujo? Who remembers Cujo? A lot of y'all. Okay, listen, I wasn't watching Cujo. I was a preacher's kid. We were watching the Waltons. We're listening to Carmen. But you all heathens were watching Cujo. And Cujo is about this crazy dog, okay? So the dog, Willow's out in the yard, and the dog gets loose and goes crazy Cujo on Willow and attacks her. My brother hears this going on, runs downstairs and runs out into the yard. Now, how many of you are afraid of Cujo until it is messing with your kid? How many of you, this is you? Oh, yeah, listen, my wife, she is so sweet. You mess with our kids, she will hunt you down. She will bury you in the gumbo swamp. She is like, he goes from church Stacy to trained assassin like that, man. And so Tim, as a parent, sees the dog hurting Willow and runs out and rescues Willow from that dog. Now, question, if you're in that situation and you're Tim, are you mad at the kid or are you mad at the dog? The kid or the dog? The dog. Divorce is the dog. God hates how the dog hurts his children. He doesn't hate his children. Listen, God does not hate you if you've been divorced. He hates what you went through, but he does not hate you, period. And so I'm just going to give you my take on divorce. And you may not agree with this, and that's okay. I think you guys need my email address again. Here's my take on divorce. The way I read the Bible, I think there are a few times where, as a last resort, divorce may need to be considered in a relationship. Now, full disclosure, full disclaimer, I think divorce is always, every single time, without fail, a last resort. Everybody say last resort. I think if you're married, you should be looking for reasons to stay in your marriage and not leave your marriage, all right? You just got to remember that before you write that 1-star Google review about today's message, all right? But as a last resort, I think the Bible gives a few moments where it may, as a last resort, be considered. And that is adultery, and that is as an ongoing pattern. In Matthew 19, you can read that in abandonment, which is your spouse leaving you, or abuse. Now, adultery and abandonment are black and white in the Bible. I got some verses here to prove it. You can look them up. It is black and white. I put an asterisk next to abuse because I'm just being honest with you. It is not black and white in the Bible. But I just want to say that I want to show you, well, let me ask you this. I believe it's implied in the Bible. And you might be like, where? Well, remember when Jesus said this? It's not the very famous thing that he said, but he said, love your neighbor as you love who? Yourself. We always forget that last part. Is it loving yourself to allow yourself to be somebody else's punching bag over and over again? Is it loving yourself to allow your kids to be in an abusive situation? Yes or no? No. Matthew chapter 18, this is what Jesus said in the chapter before. All right. He says, but if anyone abuses one of these little ones who believes in me, it would be better for him to have a heavy boulder tied around his neck and be hurled into the deepest sea than to face the punishment he deserves. Hello. And so, call me crazy, but I think divorce is always, every single time, bad, but it's not always every single time wrong. So I'm gonna wrap up with a story, and Nate, if you want to come up here and start playing, so we're going to end with a final song today. But while Nate's coming, I want to tell you the story. I'm a preacher's kid, and so what that means is when I was growing up, there were people always in and out of my house. Like when you're a preacher's kid, people from the church are in and out of your house all the time. And I remember when I was 8 years old, I'll never forget this. And it's part of the reason I had to do this message. All of a sudden, I'm in my living room, and all these ladies from our church bust in the laundry room side of our house into that door, and they run through the house, and all these ladies, I recognize all of them because they all came to the church, and my mom was trying to guard me from seeing the one lady they were shuffling in. And they ran in my bathroom, and they shut the door so I wouldn't see, but they were so frantic that the door didn't latch, and so the door swung open. And what I saw as an 8-year-old kid was I saw this woman from our church who had been beat to death by her husband. And her eyes were swollen and full of tears. And they lifted up the back of her shirt. It was black and blue. Cuts all over him. And I didn't even know where to categorize that as a kid. I didn't know what to do with that. So much so that I blocked that out of my memory for 34 years. I had to go back to my parents 2 weeks ago and say, did this happen? Because I don't know if I made this up and they were devastated that I remembered this. And I watched them use my bath towel to try to wipe dry blood off this girl's back. And you know this wasn't the first time that happened. But thankfully, she had people from our church surrounding her in that moment. And she ended up divorcing her husband. And not only to save herself, because she had 2 kids in that house as well. And I thought all week, how that poor woman, after she got divorced, she had to walk back in our church and think, are they judging me? Are they whispering about me? Do I have a scarlet letter on my back? Am I even welcome in this church? And she had to think that because some religious knucklehead had put in her brain that if God hates divorce and I got divorced, then God must hate me and call me crazy. But I don't think it's a sin that she divorced her husband. I don't. There's nowhere in the Bible that I read where I could see Jesus saying to her, oh, no, you just go back home. And when he zigs, you zag. I can't see Jesus saying that. And your kids, they need to be able to duck too. I just can't see it. But what I saw in my childhood bathroom was these ladies from our church surround her and help her stand. They didn't quote a half a verse from Malachi to her. You know what they did? They showed her the totality of the Bible in that moment. And as messy of a story as that is, the only beautiful thing about that story is that I walked away thinking that quote, the only army that shoots their own is the Christian army. I thought that's not always true. And I think God's dream is not for that to be anybody's story. But if that does happen to be your story, I think the church is supposed to follow in and surround you and help you stand, period. And so, if you are in a situation like that, and you think, can I walk in this church? Can I be welcome? I want you to know, this is your church. This is your spot. We love you. And you're like, if you're thinking, can I, maybe that's not my story, but can I be divorced and be a part of this church and be welcome here and partner here? That's like saying, can I be messy in any area of my life and be welcome in this church? And the answer is yes. Get in here. Let's go. Get in here. You are welcome here. This place is a refuge for you. And I will die on that hill that this will be a place that people can have a second chance and can be loved no matter what you have been through. But I don't have to die on that hill for that, because we'll put up this last slide. Jesus died on that cross so that nobody would have to be treated like a second-class citizen. And if you're divorced, that means you. He still loves you. And around this church, you are still loved. Let me pray for you. Jesus, I'm so thankful that we have a place that we can run as a refuge. And God, I know you have called our church to be a different kind of church where we can get redemption and refuge and care and love and not judgment. God, I pray that we will never be the church of judgment, and we'll be a church of love. And thank you, Lord, for modeling that love on that cross for us. And so, God, I just pray that we'll know that you have given us good things. Even if life is messy, you have given us good things, and you love us. And so, God, we're thankful. We're thankful. We are thankful. We are thankful. And I pray for the people in this room that if this is hit and they've maybe walked into church feeling like if God hates divorced people, that means me. Listen, God, I just pray that you help them feel that is not this place and that will never be this place. And they are welcome here. And you have an incredible future for them because their past doesn't define them. You define them. And you are a God of love and grace and second chances. In Jesus' name, amen.